Hey everyone. Let me just get that on. All right. So sorry I am late. There has just been a lot going on. I've been in meetings all day today, so I needed a little downtime before I jumped on this live. So what I want to go over with everyone is that there's some announcements that I really need to make before we get involved with getting into tonight's live about body image and self-love. So what I want to talk to everybody about announcement wise, first thing first is our website is down. Someone tried to not hack our website, but put a bug or a virus in our website. I don't know what they were trying to accomplish, but we have a team of engineers and a security firm on that. So we have to wait to see what the byproduct of that is. No information was taken. Nothing was, like they didn't get the desired result that they wanted because we invest money into security. So I don't know what these people were trying to accomplish, but they didn't get what they wanted. Secondly, so our website right now is down. You can reach us through Facebook in the meantime. So that's the first announcement. Second announcement is I had meetings with congressional members today on a number of projects. We are still working on the I Am Vanessa Guillen Act. What I do want everyone to know is that we have made tremendous amounts of progress in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. There's still work that has to be done in the Senate. So we're still working on that. We're still going forward with that. We'll send everybody information on it when our website is back up. Also, what I do want to let everyone know before getting into tonight's discussion as well is that we are also working, not as you know, with Celeste Largo's family, but we're also working with Faye Ohu's family as well. We took on both families and their cases. Some of you may be familiar with what their cases are. Both of them experienced military sexual trauma. Both of them are in the Marine Corps, and said that they were having symptoms and asked for help and did not get adequate mental health. And now both of them are in the brig. And for those of you who know my story, you know that my story is extremely similar to what their families are going through. So what I want to start with is we are working on a number of projects, for them and their families. However, at this time, there's not much for me to say or for me to disclose because we're not at a point that I'm ready. I'm not ready for that, and neither are they. However, when we are, and when everyone is ready to talk about that, I will present that information to everyone and how all of you can get involved. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for being so great about getting involved, the efforts that everyone has been doing, and it's just amazing. I am so proud to lead this organization. I am so proud of our volunteers and the work that we're doing. We have amazing people on our team. And I couldn't ask for better people. Literally the work that we're doing is life-changing. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for contributing, for being a part of it, and just for making all this happen. Because without all of you, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be at this point. So I do want everyone to understand that that we're grateful to you guys. Tonight's conversation is a mature conversation. It's gonna ruffle some feathers, which is what we do. So we're gonna talk about body image and self-love, what that means, what that looks like. And we're gonna have some hard conversations like we normally do. So we're gonna talk about body image after MST. Because it's really important, right? So body image after MST, if you see the picture that I have up, that was me when I was bodybuilding. I want to say 22. Yeah, I want to say about 22. at the time, and I was out of the Marine Corps for maybe a couple years. And what I wanted to talk about was like what body image issues come up, because a lot of our community, when you go through sexual violence, a lot of people go through unhealthy relationships with others and with themselves. And, it's like you lose who you are and you feel powerless, because when you go through sexual violence, not only are you physically violated, but your soul, you feel like someone's taking your soul from you without your permission, right? So you feel powerless. And when your soul gets fractured like that, and hurt, now your ego kicks into overdrive, especially when you're, in the Marine Corps, because they overdevelop your ego for your fight or flight response. So what then happens is your response to trauma is to protect your soul so much that your ego becomes over responsive, right? Instead of having a balance between your soul and your ego. So like what happens a lot of times is like the experience of being in the military, and even their ideologies just with women in general. Like for instance, the body fat clippers, the half rations, the nasty ass food they make you eat, like all of those things contribute to how women view themselves. And when you're 17, 18 years old and your brain is not fully developed, you don't understand how these things are harmful to yourself or to your fertility. These are not things that you're typically going to think about at those ages. And when you join the military has this mindset that you are their property for combat. Your well-being doesn't fucking matter, right? Like you're there to be combat ready at all times, and they own you. And that is my biggest problem with socialism. Like there's people that hate capitalism, there's people that have socialism, but in America, the most social entity we have is the US military. Everything about it is socialism, right? It's owned by the government, it's operated by the government, its funding is from the government. When you sign up, the government owns you. Nothing is in the for-profit sector. Your wages and everything are related to what the government wants and the standards they set. 100% socialist, which also blows my mind, because people think that like the military is not socialist, and then they come out and they're like, I hate socialism, and you're like, you just signed up for the most social entity ever. But anyway, so like the issues that I have with socialism is the amount of control that they place over you, because well-being should always come first, right? Whether you're in the for-profit sector or you're in the military and you're in a socialist entity, human well-being should come first, like your mental and emotional state, your physical state. So like you're not anyone's property, right? Like you're a US citizen who's serving their country. You're not the property of the US government, but they don't view it like that. So your well-being doesn't matter. Just like, are you combat ready? So like what happens a lot, like especially for young women, is the half rations, the body fat clippers, especially in boot camp too, like they'll tell you you're fat when you're not. Like there's a lot of mental mind games that go on, or like you'll go to weigh-ins, or even after you're like out of boot camp and you're in the fleet or you're at MOS school, even if you gain weight or something, and the weigh-ins they do, even if your athletic performance is on point, like your athletic performance is where it needs to be, they don't give a fuck. They'll be like, you're fat as fuck. And what happens with your mind, especially at that age, you don't have a judgment function. You don't develop a judgment function until you're, 22 to 25. Like you'll feel it emerging at 22, but by 25, it's like you have a whole nother part of your brain that you're like, I wish I had this sooner. And what happens is that you develop this idea that you're fat all the time. And then when you go through sexual violence and your body is violated, then you're like, I want to be strong and I want to protect myself and I don't want anyone to hurt me anymore. And, so now your fight response is kicking in overdrive. You hate yourself, right? Because you feel like your soul is crushed. And then, the way the dynamics are in the military, like they blame victims for the violence in which they go through when the military has a culture of workplace violence, right? So then the development happens on a further step that people start to think that they self-hate. And when you hate yourself, you're not going to take care of yourself, right? And when you're feeling pain then turns to I don't want to feel this pain anymore. Right. And you're going to do one of two things. Like, I don't want to live anymore because this pain is hurting so much. My soul is so damaged. I don't have a will to survive. Or you turn to substance abuse, right? And substance abuse, you get to this point of, as you're going down that road, harming yourself, right? And yeah, that's 100%, 100%. Um, that they would do that. Like, they would use these body fat clippers and tape. I remember that too, on me. And like, honestly, even when I was in boot camp, I was fucking skinny as hell. Like, I boxed before I went to the Marine Corps. And I did competitive boxing all the way from middle school, all the way up until I went to the Marine Corps. And I'm not talking about like little competitive boxing. Like, I did USA boxing. Like, I did it for an actual league. And I also competed like in nationals. I competed in regionals. I competed in states. Like, and I won all of those in my division. So like, I was already extremely athletic when I was going into the Marine Corps. Like, I was super skinny. Like, it's so crazy. But anyway, like, they would tell me that I was fat because like if you look at my leg muscles in this picture, like, I'll show you. Yeah, like, my legs are just brolic as fuck. And like, and this is me, like, muscle with super low body fat. Like, I'm more muscular than most females will be. But also too, like, one of the things that I want to get into a topic about is like, that also wasn't natural. Like, I was abusing steroids, but my body was very similar in terms of muscular physique before I started abusing steroids. Yeah, I did knock out. It was at MOS school that I knocked out staff sergeant. Like, I knocked her the fuck out, and it was because of boxing. She choked me. Like, and that's the thing too. Like, there's just crazy shit, the shit that happens in the fucking Marine Corps, like crazy shit. But yeah, I fucking knocked that bitch's ass out. I was like, you ain't gonna touch me. I was like, no, no, no. Okay, so it's just because you have comments coming in, I want to have this conversation, but I want to respond. Yes, the government is owned by capitalism 100%. Capitalism, though, so capitalism is contorted and corrupted, right? Adam Smith's capitalism was designed to be a way that everybody could achieve their dreams and excel the ladder, and that wealth would be shared, right? Like, not trickle down economics, but a way that everybody could benefit. So like, if you look at like the 60s when it was predominantly white males, like, they were making enough money to support a family of four, have 5 cars, go out on the weekends. And that was also at a point that technology wasn't advancing the labor force. So the thing about it is like, that's what, like, I understand what you're saying and I agree with you, but it's because capitalism itself is corrupt. Where socialism itself, like, is not functional to human nature. Like, if capitalism based itself on well-being and spirituality, like, what is best for individuals and their souls, and we function off of the premise of service to others and service to community as the focus versus profits and money generation, and we focused on well-being of everyone, and we allowed people to move up the more valuable they were in the game, and we didn't like artificially suppress wages. Like, if we actually let capitalism and wages inflate correctly, all of those things, then, and capitalism functioned as it should be, it would be the better option economically and for people's well-being. It's just because it is corrupted and contorted by a few powerful elites who then use their money and influence to pay for politicians, who then also, give them money to influence what decisions they make. And then at the same time, now they're, working in the for-profit sector, making profits, and then they're using that money to influence the military as well. So like, there's a lot of reasons that it's corrupted, and like, that was Citizens United, because Citizens United allowed that kind of corporate money to influence politicians. And that's really where we started seeing things go super downhill. So yes, I can understand that. I think what's gonna happen is with millennials in our generation, I think that's gonna change for sure. I don't think when millennials end up in powerful leadership positions, they're going to be as like fucked up and unconscious as like the generation before us, to be honest. So I think capitalism will move. I think economics will move towards a spiritual economics that's more fulfilling, that respects the environment, that respects everyone around, everyone else. I don't think it'll be like nearly as corrupt. Like, wait, did you guys see what happened with what was it, Oxycontin? The company now got in trouble because 450,000 Americans died by overdose because of a scam that they were running with doctors that was illegal for 10 years. So like that is corruption, right? Like you're like, fuck people's well-being. I want to make $5 billion. I don't care that I killed 500,000 Americans, and none of those families are getting money. And then it's like I'm taking a severance package home. The company is collapsing, and it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like that's corrupt. And like that's capitalism. That's not how capitalism should function. It should function like, hey, there's legitimate medical treatment, there's innovation, we should generate profit for the innovation. However, we should always put people's well-being first, and that's where the idea of like a spiritual economics that puts somebody's soul first and makes sure that their soul is healing and thriving. I think that if that was our value system and our basis for capitalism, we would have a totally different America. Like we would have the American dream manifesting more and more, and we definitely wouldn't have a lot of the issues that we have. Well, I don't know that it's overconsumption. I think honestly, it's a lot of propaganda and marketing. But the water scarcity in certain areas, yeah, I think it's more due to climate change. But I do want to get back to body image. I know this is like, woo, taken everywhere. But getting back to body image and just talking about this, I wanted to talk about like some of the issues that I had coming out of the Marine Corps. So in this photo that you see here, I was competing in bodybuilding, and um, like I said, even prior to me bodybuilding, I still had a muscular physique. If anything, I think when I was using steroids, it wasn't so much that it made my muscles bigger as much as it was like cutting down my body fat, right? So you can see my muscles. It's like my body type, I'm a very naturally thick and curvy woman, where like I have body fat over my muscles. So like for me, when I was abusing steroids, what I liked about it was not only my physique, feeling super skinny, feeling, good about myself, like, there's no body fat anywhere. It's just like solid muscle, right? So when I was competing and going through that, like for me at that time, like I didn't really feel on top of the world. It was more of like I was going through, trauma. I was going through a lot of trauma. I was 22, 22, 23. I didn't have the tools and emotional resources to deal with the trauma that I was enduring. And that led me down a road of I need to be skinny, I need to be powerful, I need to be muscular. Like no one's ever gonna hurt me. I'm gonna fuck them up. If I'm on steroids, I can fucking lift like 700 pounds with my legs because it's crazy. But like I can do like if leg presses like naturally, not on steroids. I can probably do like 450. But like on steroids, like I can kick fucking ass. Like literally, like my legs could murder someone. Like that's how strong I am naturally. And that ended up, turning into like that sense of strength after going through rape for me. Like that's what I wanted. Like I wanted to be strong, and I wanted to look strong, and I wanted to be skinny. And all of those things were damaging to my well-being. And obviously, when you're on steroids, all of a sudden like your brain changes, right? And you're not feeling pain. You're literally not feeling pain. And that's also problematic because you don't deal with your pain, and you also don't make decisions that are healthy. And that also not only harmed me, harmed my fertility, harmed my brain chemistry, but it made my PTSD worse, like far worse than what it probably should have been. But yeah, it was, this time in my life. And like, here's a good picture too, because like, I'm competing on stage. But like, if you look at my legs compared to everyone else's legs, like they're nowhere near mine, right? Like, cause I can kick fucking ass. So like, at that point in my life, I was like, like I'm strong, like, so back then when I would look at myself, it was like, okay, you can't hurt me. You can't do anything to me. And like, I'm not ever going back down this road of, being victimized and harmed. And that was what my mentality was. And other than that, like, I didn't really have another mentality to share on it. And what I, eventually had to come to learn and come to terms with is that I was hurting myself, and I had to learn that through the hard way, through, doctors. And I was getting really sick and I was just like, this isn't sustainable for my life. What I'm going through right now, and I don't know if you guys can guess which one was me, the one with the biggest legs. Can I make this bigger? I don't know if you guys can see. Yeah, it's like I'm the second one from the right. Like the second one from the right with my legs crossed. Yeah. So that's like just what I was dealing with at that point. And yeah, right here. That's me. But like it was, for me, the experience was, how do I put this? Back then I didn't know better. And back then, like, that's what I thought was going to be the right path for myself. And also, like, I didn't know I had PTSD. Like, that's another big thing. So I was trying to figure shit out on my own and it wasn't really working well. That's a famous bodybuilder. You guys might know her. I don't know how much you guys are into bodybuilding. Just another one, a picture of me with my legs crossed. Yeah, so it's like, during this time in my life, it was like I looked good, but mentally, emotionally, and even physically, health wise, I was not doing good. You know what I mean? And for being that young and being during my fertility years, the mentality that I had and the unhealthy relationship that I had with my body was due to the Marine Corps and the trauma that I endured in the Marine Corps. And that is the byproduct of what happened. So it's like, while it looks nice in the public eye and while it looks appealing, it was harmful. Like, and that's something that I don't think we talk enough about when women go through sexual violence. I haven't heard from any men about body image issues or like steroid abuse or anything like that, going through sexual violence, like that they had an unhealthy relationship with their body. It was more so like their ego and healing from that after that happened. But I know a lot of women who went through body image issues afterwards. And you feel like, this is insane. Like, when I look how skinny I was, I think my body fat was like 10% there. Like, that is not good for fertility. Like, I want to repeat that. Like, that is not healthy during your fertile years. Like, and also, like, even 15% is not healthy. If you talk to doctors, you should be 20% body fat during your fertile years. And like, doctor after doctor would tell me that. And that was one of the things of like, when I was doing bodybuilding and every time I would like go to the doctor, like they would have these conversations with me at the VA. And at that time I was going to the VA, but I was not in treatment for PTSD. And well, I actually, that was like, I first started with them and then like I quit at first because it started getting deep and it started getting about MST and I couldn't handle that. So then I quit, but I was going to VA for medical. And at this point, you know what I mean? Like, they kept telling me like my body fat was way too low. And I was like, it was weird because like the doctors were telling me this, but I also had this mentality from the Marine Corps that I was too fat. Cause it's like, I'd get the body clippers, I'd be put on half rations. They're constantly telling me that I was a fat fuck and like I needed to lose weight. And like, it was hard to transition into civilian life and then like learn to take care of myself. And also like you're thinking like, okay, what's the right thing? You know, what's the right thing to do? And one of the things that I really like struggled with was trying to figure out like who to trust, you know, and then I was like, I'm definitely not going to trust the Marine Corps. And like, that's when it took me about a year, but that's when I started really listening to my doctors. And that's when I was like, okay, like I need to take care of myself, you know, and I'm going to put myself first and I'm not going to do this to myself. And you know, it was a hard journey. Oh, and then withdrawing off of steroids, steroid withdrawal, not cool. When you have PTSD and you go on steroid withdrawal, how do I put this? You hate everybody. Like, so, oh, and also too, here's the other thing that I don't think people ever talk about. So when you go on steroid withdrawal, what that's like, so when you're on steroids, your serotonin levels go up, right? And but like high. And then what happens is you get what's called a rebounding effect. So the rebounding effect that takes place when you get off steroids is that your serotonin drops. But here's the thing that happens is when you go through the rebounding and your brain's like not making serotonin and you have PTSD and your brain wasn't making it anyway, it's even worse. So then you end up with a self-inflicted PTSD episode. And you have really violent bouts and like you are not nice to people. Like you just want to curse out everybody all the time and like flip out and like everything is triggering. It's like you end up in another episode after withdrawing. And you know, that's well, that was very nice of you. Yeah, I mean, I think women in the military go through that, you know. You don't know what ripped fuel means. If you definitely want to share that though, willing to listen. But yeah, it was, you know, it's hard, it's unhealthy. And like I said, these are not conversations that we generally have, but we need to have them because a lot of women in the military experience, you know, have these experiences with their body and have this self-hate and then feel like, you know, I'm going to be strong and powerful and no one's going to hurt me and I'm going to evolve and, you know, I'm going to have low body fat and whatever. And I think active duty military women go through this just as much as female veterans do. I just think you know, if you're active duty for your whole life, you know, you're stuck in that mentality and you're stuck in that culture. So I think you just end up taking it on as a belief that it's healthy. And, you know, when you have fertility issues, that just comes with the job kind of thing. Where I don't think that that's moral. I don't think that that's just. I don't think that that's healthy. And that's something that definitely needs to change. And the way that's going to change is by us talking about this happening, right? Because this is like another thematic conversation that happens with us within the community when we're talking about body image issues, but a lot of people don't like to come forward with it. Like they don't like to acknowledge that they've dealt with these things or these things have happened. Um, I look dark in that picture. Like I look like such a Blanca right now. Um, compared to that picture, right? Like I look super dark. But yeah, like that's the extent of like what I was going through. So it's like you look at what's happening as an outsider and like you're like, oh, she's interested in bodybuilding. She's interested in taking care of her body. She wants to be athletic. But like internally, I was just suffering and like breaking down. You know what I mean? And it really was this point of like just trying to prove something to myself and also make myself feel better. Like I didn't want to be you know, going through these situations. And like also what's bizarre to me is like I remember when I first got those pictures, I felt like I was still ugly, which is crazy because like I look at them now and I'm like, damn girl. I'm like, I looked like that at 22. I looked like that at 23. Like, I'm like, I looked like that for like 3 years of my life. So like now I look back and I'm like, oh wow, I was absolutely beautiful. But I remember going through like getting those pictures back for the first time, and like I wasn't even nice to myself when they came in. I was like, oh my God, my legs look so fat. My stomach doesn't look the way that I want it to look. Like I was like, my poses are on point, like, like compared to everyone else. But I was like, oh, I'm chunky, I'm this, I'm that. And then what was bizarre was like these pictures went viral on the internet at the time, like everywhere. And it was weird because other people liked it, but when I looked at myself, I absolutely hated it. I was like, I need to eat less. Like I still look fat in that picture. And I got into starving myself because I was like, I need to look skinnier than this. Like I need to lose more body fat. Like I don't know what I was doing to myself. But that's really like how I felt at that time. I'm just trying to see if oh yeah, like see here, I'm like super, super skinny here. Where I was like, I just harming myself. It was really bad. It's a really bad time in my life. Just really sad. I think, when I look at it or I think about it sometimes. Um, what's it doing here? Aw, that's cute. Oh, this is beautiful. This is when I sexism in politics. So I did this in 2015. Definitely still feel this way. When I first ran for office, people like picked up my bodybuilding pictures and told me I couldn't run for office because I did bodybuilding. And then I was like, how the fuck is he a congressman? I was like, why do white men get to do this? So I made this post because I was mad as hell. I was just like, why can he be on the cover of Men's Magazine? Why can he do steroids and be in Congress? Why can he be naked and by the pool? No one gives a flying fuck. But, I competed in bodybuilding for 3 years and it's a problem. You know what I mean? Like, just dumb shit like that because that's America for you. Let me see this one. Oh, what did I write here? Oh, yeah. So that's all my different pictures from back then. Let me just look at that. That's pretty much all of them. Aw, my partying days. All right, now I'm like going down memory road. So let me stop this so we can continue the discussion. Um, yeah, so anyway, like what I want to talk about is like how these things are they're harmful. You know what I mean? Like they're so harmful. It's just like there is another generation of women that are going to come up and like we have to have these conversations so that families know what they're in for and they know what to expect. Because like I got to a point that I still felt like I was really fat and like I have more pictures where like I got super skinny, like to the point that you could see my abs. And like, and that was chiseled. And like I thought that was normal. Like I was like, oh, I look good. Like I'm supposed to be like that. And then doctors are like, you're really gonna hurt yourself. And that was when I was like, okay, like something has to change, I don't want to be harming myself. And then I had to learn how to take care of myself. And I was still dealing with self-hate and I was struggling to love myself and love my body. And then like what's crazy is now I'm at a point that I'm like, I love my thick girl self. I love my curves. And people are like, why are you showing your curves? Why are you half naked on the internet? And I'm like, you did not give a flying motherfucking fuck when I was fucking muscular as hell what I look like, and now that I got curves, like it's problematic for you. Like there are so many issues with people's mentalities on how we perceive women and how women demonstrate their femininity, like, and also like your looks, and when you don't fit into a stereotype. Like, I'm never going to fit into a stereotype. I'm never going to be a fucking nun. I'm never going to live that motherfucking life. And I don't want to, you know? And like, the reason why I'm saying this is like, I love myself the way I am. I love my good, my bad, my ugly, my flaws. I love myself. And I love my soul and I love my connection to the world. And like, no one is going to ever take that away from me. You know, like if that has happened to me in the military, that will never happen again. And for me, it's like, I don't care about people's outward perception on how they feel I should be, because I've gone through this journey already that like what you see on the outside doesn't necessarily reconcile with what's happening on the inside or what's happening behind the scenes. And for me, I'm going to do what's best for me and my body and loving myself and taking care of myself in a way that feels good to me, right? And like, that's what self-love is, and like taking care of yourself. It's doing things that are that feel good to you, that align with your values, that are healthy for you, you know, and anything outside of that, like if you're aligned to your highest purpose, you're connected to your soul, and you feel solid about what you're doing, your morals are intact, you know, and just because I might be different from you doesn't make me a bad person. It just means that we're different. You know what I mean? And I think people tend to neglect that, or like they want to enforce their ideologies and every single person has to have it and every single person has to be the same. That's why when I talk to people in the movement, I'm like, you if you want to go back and listen to the video, I just covered that whole part. So now we're moving on to another segment. But yeah, so like, anyway, what I was saying was that like, at this point, it's very much, how do I put it? It's very much like it's highly individualized, right? And everyone's experience is highly individualized. So where you are in your story and who you are and your identity, like that's yours, you know, and that's yours to have. And no one can tell you how to love yourself. Like that's something you have to learn on your own, you know, and like who you are. But what I was saying was that like when you're on this journey to loving yourself, outside people don't matter. Like they don't matter. They don't influence how you feel about yourself in your heart. And I think what happens a lot of times in the military is like you have these influences telling you like you're too fat, you have to be skinny, you're not combat ready, you know, you're a fat fuck, it needs to be this way, you need to go on half rations. These body clippers say that you're too fat, and like that mentality sticks with you for the long term. And then what happens is female service members and veterans end up infertile at like, I think it's 5 to 8 times the rates. I have to double check it, as a civilian woman. And when you look at that, that's also endangering because like, I'm sure a lot of us joined the military because we're like, we want to have a family, we want to be taken care of, we want to do something for our country, we want to better our lives. And then you're like, oh, my whole life is destroyed because my fertility's done. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of those things are definitely like unjust and very harmful. Let me start reading some comments because I see comments coming in. Men are allowed to do that and everything else and get away with it because they're men. Yeah, I would love to say that that's accurate. That's why I will say fuck the patriarch like all day long, because it's like none of this makes sense. Like this is the thing that's most bizarre to me about all this. Everybody on this planet that exists came out of a woman's vagina. Like, and in a recent, maybe a trans man, right? Like a trans men's vagina, if you're like not fully transitions, you know, but like, let's just say aside from that, everybody has historically come from women. And I'm like, without women, there would be no men. Like there would be literally no men. So it blows my mind that like men in leadership could be so inept to women's issues and like women's health and women's concerns and like what women need. You know what I mean? It's like Like, what's sustainable for the long term? Okay, she's young, while she's athletic, we need her in the military as long as we can to maintain our investment. So even while we need to get her combat ready, we need to protect her fertility, we need to protect her health and her mental health, because her physical health also relates to her mental health, right? Oh, we also maybe need to make sure that we don't have a culture that's rooted in rape, and body shaming. And like, you would think that like a healthy culture would be something that they would be incentivized to do, right? Especially like having a mom that has loved you and birthed you into the world. Like, would you want your mom to be treated like this? You know what I mean? And then it's like, I don't know what happens of like, there's a disconnect. And like, it happens in politics too, like if you're looking at like Roe versus Wade, and like a woman's right to choose with her body, about like how that's getting dialed back in a lot of the states, right? And like, and it's men doing it. And it's like, you want to control young women's fertility, like, and you want to control how far they can get up the social ladder, and it's like, why would you do that when like they birth men? You know what I mean? And it's like, the further she is down the social ladder, the further down that man is. So it's like, you're intentionally trying to suppress, men and women of color. So there's just a lot of systemic issues that come with it. But like, the military definitely plays into 100% of that. Yeah, when I was in the Marine Corps, I was 5'6", and I went like 125 to 130, I would say. Um, that I was in the end, like I was still told that I was really fat. Oh, and in those bodybuilding pictures where I'm like muscular as hell, I was 145 in those pictures, to let you know. And I was not fat at all. My body fat was like 10%. So it's crazy. I was like, when I came out the Marine Corps, I was just like starved. I literally looked like I like came out of a refugee camp. Like, it was crazy. It was crazy. See, there's more comments. Oh, I didn't know that. All right. So, well, after the live, there's a segment that we already passed. I just don't want to go back to it because we're ending soon. But there's a whole segment on body image. There's a whole segment on everything else that we're doing. Oh yeah, yeah. So 100%. Listen, all of it's based on sexism and white supremacy. 1,000%. Like 1,000%. It's like these ideas of like, what, like, this is how this works, and you have to fit into this square box because we're all white squares that sit on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So therefore, all of you have to be white squares because this is how you all get to the top, and this is how we become the most functional military. And you're like, no, diversity is what leads to the most functional military. Like social well-being, soul and internal well-being, like those things help people to, develop. And like, when you're developing people, because like the military intentionally develops people to have PTSD, like it's intentional. There's like this whole research study that I read that was really, really good, that like spoke about how the military intentionally looks for certain characteristics in recruits that will develop PTSD because they become the best fighters because of the fight or flight response. And it's a mind-blowing read. I have to find it, and I have to tell you guys about it. But like, it's such a mind-blowing read where it literally tells you like that they do that. Oh, and even with sexual violence in the military, the report goes into talking about how the reason sexual violence in the military isn't addressed is because the best way to turn females into murderers is to give them PTSD through sexual violence, because women generally are not violent, right? But when you look at historically and statistically, what will make a woman violent is rape. So it's like insane that I have to, yeah, I'll definitely send it to you when I find it. I was reading it and I was like, yo, when I was like reading the report, I was like, yo, this shit's speaking the truth. Like, this is fire, fire. It reminds me of, have you ever read this? Well, first of all, do you guys know who Smedley Butler is? If you're a Marine, you might know. So Smedley Butler was in the Marine Corps for 33 years, and he started off as a lieutenant, a second lieutenant, and made it to major general, right? And this guy, when he gets out of the military, so he was at the time, he was the most decorated Marine in U.S. history for his time in 1933. He gets out and he does this speech on imperialism. And when he gets out, he calls out all the corruption, like with the bankers, with the military. Like he basically calls them the mafia. And he's like, the U.S. government is like the ultimate mafia. And he's like, if Al Capone thought that like him running 3 districts was like if he thought what he was doing was on the level of like racketeering, he was like, I'm the #1 racketeer because like I ran this on 3 continents. And like he gets into like all of the different places that the Marine Corps had sent him, and how every single time it wasn't to fight for freedom. And like in his speech, he talks about how the US flag always follows the US dollar. And it's not that the US flag follows freedom. And it's like, it's just such a real speech. Like, there's so many talking points where he was like, I'm basically a gangster for Wall Street, like his speech is just so fucking real. And I don't think there has been a more honest speech about how the military operates to date. And what's insane is like he called this out in 1933, and like here we are in 2020, and it's the same thing, And oh yeah, for sure. And that's actually my favorite question for people. At what point in the military career did you realize that you were an anarchist? I know, because you're just like like you're like, so democracy, here we are for freedom, and you're like, how come we're never in countries fighting for freedom? Why is no one free? Like, why are we all dirt? Why are we poor? Why do we have no freedom? Or even like in the military, you literally have no freedom. Like you have to be a certain weight. You wear a uniform. Like you have to fit in. Like you surrender your freedom to fight for freedom. That makes no sense. Makes no sense, right? So like that incongruency when you think about that in and of itself. So what are you fighting for? And then you look at whatever regions we're fighting in, or whatever regions we have conflict in. Wherever there's high conflict or wherever there's terrorism, there's an oil field every single time. And every time we send people to war, it's like we look at the private organizations like Halliburton, like they make $36 billion. And we look at the Wall Street firms, and every single time they're all making billions and millions of dollars off of every single spot we are in war. And what they're doing is forcing these governments to take over their land. So that's imperialism. And we're fighting for oil resources. Like, so like the concept of like the flag follows the dollar from Smedley Butler is essentially saying like we're following oil currencies, right? Like we're following the oil commodity, and wherever that takes us, that's where we're going, and like that's what's prevalent with the North Dakota Access Pipeline happening in America, right? Like, so many people are protesting like they brought in the military to guard the oil pipeline in America on Native American fucking soil. Like how anti, like that's the most anti-American shit you could ever do. But when you look at like US history, we've done that to Native Americans since the inception of time, like fucking white people. You know what I mean? So like that is the US military. That's why I said like the US military is the #1 arm for white supremacy 1000% of the time. But all right, so I'm gonna wrap up with you guys. For anyone who didn't see the beginning, you guys can go back once I jump off. Enjoy the rest of your nights. You guys take care. I already went over the updates, so we're not doing that. But if you have any questions, let us know. Again, just a reminder, our website is down. So feel free to reach out to us, on Facebook and Messenger, and I will let you guys know when we speak to our engineers and our security firm about our website and when everything gets back up and is good to go. But we are still working on our campaigns, so we will communicate with everyone as needed. So you guys have a good night. Enjoy your weekend that's coming up, and take care of your family and friends. Make good choices, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.